welcome back, everyone. Excited to see you all here. I am really stoked about today's conversation and the guests that we have on the show. But really quickly, I have to welcome everybody on the show and thank everybody for showing up. It's great to see you all my repeat offenders. Love seeing you. Hey, Carrie, welcome as always. I think I already saw Kimberly pop into the chat. Joel, nice to see you. Cybersecurity Central representing Shane. Ryan Ziegler, hello. So anybody that's new here, just so you guys know, you've made it to a great location first off. So welcome to the show of Outpost Gray. We're also in collaboration with amazing Grant Thornton, and I'm your host, Jack Scott. But just so you guys know, all of the content here is my amazing ideas, thoughts, and opinions, and it is not any reflection of Grant Thornton's thoughts or opinions. So happy if you stumbled into the show. Just so you guys know, if you are new here, first off, make sure to say hello. Say hello to the family. They would love to meet you. Outpost Gray is an amazing community. A lot of us flow into other communities, so don't be shy. Say hello. Great people in here. The other thing is, every Thursday, if you can see right here, I go live with an amazing guest, or I do a panel, or I do a fireside every week from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. And we have amazing guests on the show. So make sure you turn in every week. And then also, just a friendly reminder, and if you don't know about it yet, you're going to learn right now. Every Friday at 9 a.m., I have a new show, Outpost Gray. It's called CyberFed News. And what this is about is providing you the cyber federal news that happens during that week. And I got to give a shout out to James Driscoll for his help. He's actually a writer and a contributor for these shows. So thank you, James, and any points to anybody who can figure out which shows that he's writing about. So really excited about that. I know James, I don't even know if he's on today because he's on vacation. So I don't expect him to be in chat, but let's jump into it. Let's talk about our guest. Actually, before I talk about our guest and bring him on the show, really quick reminder, just to let you guys know, shows for next week. So we're doing our 1 year anniversary. We've been around for, I launched a little over a year ago and we just hit over 1,000. We're like at 1,100 followers or something like that. So thank you for everybody's support. If you're a YouTuber or content creator, that is a huge monumental thing, like a big step. Like that is a big accomplishment. So I'm really excited. I couldn't have done it with you without all of your support. So thankful. Hit 1,000. But with that said, Lola is coming back on the show. She was my number one first interview. And if you guys want to go check that interview out, I did a year ago, you can see the drastic difference of like how the show is today versus a year ago. So really excited to have her back on the show. And then just a quick reminder, following that, we have got an amazing guest on the show. Sonia Moisette is going to be coming on the show for the Female Voice of Innovation, or Technology and Innovation. It's a series we do every month to highlight an amazing woman in this space that is doing remarkable things within technology and innovation. So really excited. If you don't know Sonia or Lola, go and follow them. They're amazing. All right, so who do we have on the show today? Let's get to it. All right, we've got Daniel. I am not going to say his last name because I said it with him and I just kept butchering it. And so he can say his last name much better than I can do it any justice. But Daniel is amazing. We connected, I feel like it's been a couple of months at least. I'm a big nerd in the ICS space, but you want to talk about a really big nerd? Daniel's got 33 years of experience, wealth of knowledge. And what I'm really excited about is, I don't know if you all are familiar with Stuxnet, but that was really a catastrophic worm that took place, and it was 2010, and it transformed the industrial space for many reasons. So we're going to jump into that, but I'm really excited because Daniel, he's actually calling in from quite far away, and we'll talk about that, but he's a thought leader. He's a expert practitioner in this space, a consultant, a lecturer, international speaker. Some of the workshops that he's conducted have been in Israel, Singapore, Hong Kong. He's literally spoke all around the world. He's even lived in the United States for 6 years of his life. So wealth of knowledge. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get this amazing guest on the show, and make sure that you're writing down those questions because this is going to be a phenomenal show. Here we go. All right, Daniel, welcome to the amazing Outpost Gray family and show. Super excited to have you here. How you doing?
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me here. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. It's late evening here. It's mid of the day in the United States. So welcome everyone who is connecting during his early morning, late evening, maybe even late night time. We are here and we are going to have an exciting discussion about one single topic, industrial cybersecurity. So feel free, even put any question. Those who want to learn a little bit more, please follow my LinkedIn profile and my papers. Actually, today it was published a new paper about cybersecurity risk and defense in the ICS Joint Working Group, ICS-JWG. Just today published one of the papers, which happens during the past, I believe, 7 years. They periodically publish my paper because people want to learn this exciting topic.
Yeah, and I just dropped the link to his paper in there, so definitely go and check that out. And I will also drop Daniel's information over here for your LinkedIn. But first off, let's talk a little bit about how you even got into this space. Like 33 years, that's quite a long time. You've seen a lot of shifts and a lot of changes. But what were you doing? Have you always been in this space? Was this something that you did, like you went to college and then the next thing you know, you were just, this was your world, or did you have a transition period?
Actually, like everything happens because you are at the right place at the right moment and talking to the right people. So for many years, I was an engineer. I wanted to be an engineer and doing great designs. Finally, there was opportunity to be a subject matter expert in the United States. So in 1983, I took my family to Los Angeles. We spent there over 5 years. When I came back, I said, I need to do something interesting. And then I joined Motorola. And in 1990, and this was my start point with industrial control systems. I spent with Motorola over 20 years. And when the Stuxnet happened, it was 2010. This was a moment where I was just about to leave Motorola and join Siemens. And it was the right moment that people told me, well, there was an incident and you must learn what happened and you must start to become active in this field because we are now going to a new era. So this was my first introduction, exactly when the Stuxnet happened.
Yeah, so let's talk about before Stuxnet happened. I mean, it sounds like, okay, so you got into the industry working in Motorola around 1990. And when Stuxnet happened, that's a good 20 years later when Stuxnet happened. So in between those times, you were already working in the industrial space, right? How I understand it. Okay. So you're already in the space. And then right before the attack happened, you started working with Siemens. You say Siemens, right?
Siemens, yes.
Okay, Siemens. And so I looked up Siemens because I know who Siemens is, but I didn't know they had been around for that long, like that period of time that they.
No, for many years, yes.
Okay,
it's the big company.
It is. And if you guys don't know about the company, I'll drop a link in the chat for you so you can get familiar with it. When you got onboarded, actually, let's take a step back. Before you started working with them, what was your role at Motorola? What were you doing for that company?
Actually, Motorola, a well-known company in the US for wireless communication, but the Israeli operation of Motorola, at that time we had about 4,000 people working for Motorola in Israel, entered to the area of remote control via wireless media. And then it gradually developed, and Motorola actually started with irrigation, later water delivery, electricity, oil and gas. Finally, Motorola turned to be the most important vendor for industrial and utility communications, which required wireless communication. Other people knew how to do it via telephone lines, but Motorola knew how to do it via very simple radio. So yes, there are many systems, even today, the entire North America and the Asia Pacific, Europe, where Motorola control systems are controlling the water, electricity, oil and gas type systems. Even sirens are being controlled by Motorola systems. So Motorola was in a good position. Motorola is always was in the leadership position, so it was just natural that Motorola will provide the best-in-class wireless industrial control system, and I was at the right place at that time.
Yeah, so most people don't know that Motorola has this much involvement within the industrial space. Like I'm learning this as well. You think Motorola, you think phones. And so it sounds like Motorola did this shift in, what would you say, the late 90s and started really focusing their marketing strategies and their work within the industrial space to really expand there. Because when you hear Motorola today, I bet the younger generation doesn't even know that Motorola, like, what is Motorola? Because you think of like the turn phones, remember? And that was like Motorola. But it sounds like even today, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I used to have one of those where you turn and would turn. That's what I think of. Is that?
No, actually, Motorola was in this field in the early 80s already doing irrigation. Why? And it was developed in Israel by the Israeli development team, because that's the way we could irrigate the agricultural areas near the border. So this was the main entry point for Motorola for remote control via wireless media. But at that time, cybersecurity was not even, we didn't know how to spell cybersecurity at that time. Actually, 2010 was the starting point.
Yeah, yes, yeah, no, you're absolutely. Mark, that's so funny. Mark said, I have a Motorola pager. Mark, me too. That's what I'm saying. I know there's Motorola phones. I'm not ignorant. I get it. I'm an iPhone person, but Motorola, like their market within, I guess you could say, the commercial sector, it sounds like is not as big than in the industrial space. So is it, because as you're talking, I'm taking some notes. So one of the challenges in the industrial space is the IoT devices or the switches, because they have stripped down Linux systems that don't allow them to have like passwords, things like that. Like they're really basic operating systems. Now, are some of these systems being ran by Motorola? Is that what I'm understanding you?
Actually, we knew the IoT devices, which is a new name, but we have been involved with IoT systems in the past 30 years. Actually, it's a kind of small device which is collecting data and sending it to some type of computer display or activation and so on. So IoT devices were around for many, many years, but what happened in the last, let's say, 5 years, that a huge number of IoT and industrial IoT devices were installed, and this changed the situation. Why? Because many people may not know, but every IoT device that you are installing, whether it's the camera, whether it's the temperature sensor, whether it's your air conditioning, whether it's the toaster, it will increase the cyber attack surface, meaning increase the risk, which I call it homemade risk, because we decide to connect these devices to our homes, to our industrial facilities, and it increased the cyber attack surface, and meaning that many cyber attacks made possible because of so many IoT devices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that is one area that's a big concern in the industrial space, is the IoT devices, the switches, and how vulnerable those systems are. And this was even before Stuxnet even happened, like where we're at today with all of that. So I want to do a small pivot into talking about that before we talk about actually let's do a little bit of we'll timeline this. So we'll talk next. Let's talk a little bit about what happened with Stuxnet, and then I want us to kind of go into like the current history of where we are, because I think it's important for the viewers to understand how Stuxnet really impacted the industrial space, but how it also, where we're at today, and it's surprising that we're still where we're at today, even after what Stuxnet what happened from that worm. So let's first talk about like you and where you were in your life. You were about to take a new job right before Stuxnet happened and transpired. So let's talk about like your mindset during that time.
So actually, we all know that remote control and industrial controls are very important in order to achieve better productivity, cost saving, improved maintenance, and the better productivity, as I said. So creating remote control from your computer to remote devices was always important, and this is where we started with controlling the irrigation valves. Later, more complicated systems came around, and the cyber attacks started to appear initially for the IT systems. And as I said, there was an attack in Australia 1998 to 2000, that time frame, but people didn't know how to call it cyber attack, and huge and many times adversary created a spillage of sewage in a nice village. So it happened many years earlier, but the Stuxnet was a moment where people realized that facilities and systems which are disconnected from the internet are no longer safe. This is the reason why we say the Stuxnet is the starting point. Many people tend to believe that over years we have many thousands of attacks, but in reality not. There were not too many. Actually, less than 100 attacks which are directly impacting the industrial facility. Because, for example, if we talk about ransomware is an IT-oriented attack. If we talk about the Stuxnet, the Ukrainian, the Oldsmar water utility attack, and attack on against water utility in Israel, and the steel mill in Germany, these were direct attack. Then the definition is harming the industrial process. That's what we want to understand. Many people don't realize the situation, but the colonial, which disrupted the gas supply for eastern United States, it was not a direct attack against the operation. It was a standard ransomware attack. So why the operation was discontinued? Because people didn't know what happens in the system, and they were afraid that maybe the attack will infiltrate to the industrial zone, or maybe they will not know how to build their customers. So a lot of points. But remember, direct attacks against industrial facility were very few during the past 12 years. Majority are ransomware attacks against IT systems.
Yeah, and when this would happen, I mean, it was the largest of its time. It came in, and it was ideally an isolated attack that somehow spread. So how did it spread? I mean, there's a couple of different thoughts and ideas, but how did it get out of that facility and then continue to spread?
Which, the Stuxnet?
Yeah, the Stuxnet. Sorry. I was in my mind reading notes. Yeah, Stuxnet.
The Stuxnet was an attack which was internally generated. It didn't go out. It happened in a single facility. However, when it was published in May 2010, there was a major research done how it happened. Then other people started to copy the idea, and that's the way we started to see attacks against Siemens type industrial devices in many other facilities around the world. The Stuxnet was an isolated attack against a single facility.
Yeah, so that attack, that was a single attack against that facility. So it was very much a targeted attack that happened. It was targeted at their centrifuge devices, correct? And with like all the research and everything I've been doing, like it was focused on the centrifuges. I think it attacked like what was it, 100 or was it 1,000 like centrifuges? And what was happening is the monitoring of those devices, the individuals that were monitoring them, it appeared that everything was normal, but what was happening, it was melting down at that point in time, and it caused catastrophic effects. Can you talk a little bit about what that means when an attacker is targeting a centrifuge and how that could impact an overall industrial facility?
So obviously I was not among the people who did it. I cannot take any credit, but what is stated in publication, that it was actually a two-dimensional attack. There was one process which showed on the screen that everything is normal. But actually in the field devices there was a manipulation of the physical process, increase the speed, decrease the speed, until a mechanical damage happened. So it was a dual type attack. It was specifically tailored for a specific system because it didn't come through the internet. It was initiated by someone inserting a malvertised device. Which device? It was a USB stick or a computer, doesn't matter. What is important that it was a what we call internally generated attack, because we are differentiated. There are so many attacks that people are talking about, but there are actually three main, let's call it, types. Internally generated, somebody in it entering to the facility and inserting the malvertised device. Externally generated through the internet, phishing, spear phishing, and other actions which confuse people. And finally, supply chain related cyber attack, when you are buying a computer or downloading a software and it's already malvertised. So three types: internal, external, and supply chain. The Stuxnet was an internally generated cyber attack. The ransomware, in majority of the cases, I would say maybe 100% of the cases, is externally generated cyber attack.
Yeah, and they're saying like the reports and everything, which I found really interesting, like the reports about this attack really state that it was an Iranian engineer recruited by the Netherlands to plant Stuxnet virus on the nuclear power plant. And it also, some of the research I was saying really doesn't identify who was behind Stuxnet. They are accusing or making assumptions that it was the intelligence agency of the United States and Israel, and they were calling it the Operation Olympic Games. Like there's a lot of like different information out there. So it's very hard to understand, A, how did it even get on the network? And then B, who created this? Have you heard anything different on your end on like identify like what's on your end of the world? What are you hearing about this?
Well, I tell you, actually these topics are not important. It's not important who exactly did it or who penetrated. That's not important. What is important at that time, that there were many vulnerabilities in the control devices. And vulnerabilities meaning that somebody can exploit that vulnerability, and the big organizations did not pay enough attention to these vulnerabilities. Today, the situation is different. As soon as a vulnerability is announced, probably takes few days that a correcting code will be developed and everybody will know that this needs to be fixed. Actually, there are many discoveries about vulnerabilities, but what is important that not all vulnerabilities are exploited. And this is the reason why there are vulnerabilities, but we don't see so many attacks against industrial facilities. By the way, there are published reports about the Stuxnet by some experts. There was also a movie written about, prepared about it. So there's a lot of information. What is important, there was a vulnerability. People understood the vulnerability and developed an attack which was internally generated. These are the facts that we need to know about this attack versus other attacks like the Ukraine attack, which was externally generated cyber attack.
Are you talking about the 2017 NotPetya attack to the med doc that was orchestrated that took down Maersk? Is that the attack you're talking about?
Actually,
or the power plant. You're talking about the power plant one.
The power plant in Ukraine, it was 2015 and 2016. You know, at that time we were worried about what happens in Ukraine. Unfortunately, today the situation is significantly different. But at that time, it was an externally generated cyber attack. Somebody sent a malvertised Excel file to one of the operators. The operator accepted that file. And then what happened, that gradually a city of 250,000 citizens started to lose electric power. What is very interesting at that time, that nobody called to complain that they don't have electricity at the home. Nobody called. Then they figured out there was another attack which was blocking the call center. So people tried to call, but the call didn't went through because the center was blocked. It was a denial of service type attack on the center. It was a externally generated attack against the substation, but it took only 6 hours and they catched immediately the situation and they corrected it by manually by going out to the field and manually restarting the operation of the electricity. This was happened in Ukraine, which was a major attack. When you are looking, majority of the people are finally talking about 20, 30 attacks. So those people claim there were thousands and tens of thousands. No, it didn't happen. It was, I don't know exactly how many, maybe 30, maybe 50, for sure below 100, but a very small number of attacks happened against industrial facilities which aimed to damage the process. This is the differentiating factor.
Yeah. And going back to kind of what you said on the vulnerabilities, it's critical. I mean, the reason I brought up, it was like forefront in my mind, the NotPetya thing and the vulnerabilities is because you were talking about vulnerabilities. And I just wrote a paper about this yesterday. I've already written several papers, but I find it like the NotPetya, the Ukrainian one, very interesting targeted attack. And it was on a vulnerability that WannaCry had just leveraged. A month later, Eternal Blue, and they had grossly mismanaged their servers since 2013. They hadn't done any patching. And that leads me into my next question, that talking about kind of that space and that time, and still like a lot of the attacks were, we didn't see cyber security attacks at this time, at this point in time in 2010. And one of the questions that was asked by Mark, and I think this is a great segue into it, great question, Mark, but he's asking how much software testing or simulation was done back in like 2010 or before, and what best practices were in place? Like, talk a little bit about what you saw during those times that maybe made this attack even like having a graver impact because of maybe we didn't have the right software testing and stuff in place.
I think very important to accurately understand the basics. Industrial control systems were for many years built for operating safety and reliability. Cybersecurity or any type of intervention was never considered. People were always worried about safety and reliability. This is the reason why we never worried about it. Besides that, the industrial control system is usually a closed architecture. We also call it insecure by design, and the reason is because we are not worried about the attacks. We are worried about operation safety and reliability. So just to remind to some people, we know that when we speak about IT operations, people are talking about the CIA, confidential integrity availability. Some people for industrial operations are rotating the letters, IAC, AIC. But I say no, don't rotate the letter. Just use another set of letters which called SRP, safety, reliability, productivity. Productivity means also business continuity. So safety was always, for many years, on the top of the priorities, reliability as a second, and then productivity, business continuity, profitability. It was after that. And this is the reason why we never developed cybersecurity solutions. Never developed until 2010, when it happened and people realized we need to do something. But fact of life that until now we didn't see too many attacks, which is discouraging companies from investing in that area. This is a sad situation, but people invest where the risks are, and majority of the risks are at the IT operation because of ransomware attacks. This is where the pain is in the past few years, sorry.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, completely agree with that. And it's unfortunate, but it's very much like that in the space. Money goes where we see the most trouble. And when there's not any trouble occurring, I feel like leadership still has a mindset of like, it's just not going to happen to me, close the eyes. It's not going to happen to me until it does. And then reactionary, and you're usually paying out a lot more than you would have had you prepared properly and put the proper procedures in place to secure yourself. One of the questions that Nick brought up that I think is a really good question, because I'm curious about this too. And before I pull it up, just to set the stage for it, the ICS, I feel like ICS as a whole is starting to get highlighted more in the last couple of years. And there's a couple of reasons for that, at least from, and Daniel, I'm speaking from the US lens, and I'm a huge cyber policy nerd. And I have even created for the last 2 years in college, I've created an entire timeline to show where we've matured within cybersecurity in the federal space, within our laws and policies. And a lot of it has been reactionary that you've seen, like the Yahoo breach and the Target breach, Colonial Pipelines, the executive order came out shortly after that. So we have these breaches, and then we'll have a law or a policy come out around that breach. And the question that Nick was asking is, and because we haven't seen, or I've only seen and reported on and done research on maybe a handful of industrial breaches here in the United States. And so Nick is wondering, are OT attacks more common in other parts of the world? I feel like it's relatively a new focus here in the United States. And I feel like it is too, because it's still not common talk. And it needs to be in the United States. I feel like we need to be talking about this more because of how vulnerable these systems are. But to what you said just a minute ago, maybe it's going to take more attacks in the United States for us to get on board. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Are the overall attack vectors here in the States?
Well, I think we can talk about it during the next 5 hours. In reality, the biggest problem in the industrial zone are the legacy installations. If you go and visit water utilities, electric utilities in the USA, in Latin America, in Europe, you find a lot of legacies. People are not upgrading these systems because they are working fine. This is one reason. Second, because they don't have accurate documentation of how this system is working, that they are not touching it. And I want to say a secret. We are not even patching. We are not even updating the Microsoft Windows. Why? Because it is a closed architecture. Okay. And this is one reason. The second most important reason is because we are worried about safety, and you can already hear I'm worried about safety. Every change in hardware or software, every time you touch an industrial control system, you create a homemade risk, and actually something can happen. So So this is the reason. I see some of my great friends
Yeah.
are connected.
They're calling you
And
out. They're calling you out,
yes,
Daniel. We
yes.
got
So
Michael
Mike,
dropped a question in here. You're
yeah,
talking about
Mike Marullo, we know each other, I think, since my time when I was in the US. And yes, Mike, I need to answer to Mike because he said thousands of attacks against the grid.
Yeah.
But let's analyze each of them. How
Yeah.
many were direct attacks where someone penetrated to the industrial arena? Majority of the attacks are like colonial, an IT-oriented attack for causing pain and getting ransomware money. This is where the attacks are. In reality, when you are looking in all the data, some people say there is a database of thousands of attacks. Okay, I told to those people, if there are 100,000 attacks, why don't you publish 0.1%? I want to see them, because all the papers are finally talking about Stuxnet, Ukraine, Oldsmar, a German steel mill, some Iranian, recently some Iranian facility that was attacked. That's it. But we are not talking about hundreds. We are talking about few tens of attacks. That's the point.
Yeah, and Gabriel, I really like this point. Whoa, come back. I double clicked you. Come back. OT incidences are usually unreported. That is why the likelihood of metrics can be misleading to measure risk. So why is that? Why would an OT incident be unreported? I guess that's concerning to me.
Well, many people say there were thousands and tens of thousands attacks which were not reported. I don't think that it is reality. You can hide 10%, 20%. You cannot hide 99% of the attacks and publish only 1%. It makes no sense. But I want to refer to the comment of Gabriel Feifman, who is one of the experts in this field for many years, and he's pointing out the importance of the standard IC 62443, which is actually the international standard. And once people start to learn that standard and implement cyber defense solutions for protecting their facility, situation will significantly improve. Unfortunately, the standard has many hundreds of pages, so very difficult. But anyway, let's start. Let's convince people to take training. I myself, I'm conducting training, 16 hours, 24 hours, something that people can really learn. And let's do the most important things, which is segregation among networks. This is very important.
Yes.
Which is preventing remote access. Don't be so easy to allow remote access to your facility. Every remote access is representing a risk. Until before the Stuxnet, we never allowed remote access. We always say, wow, remote access only to save life of people. Today, because of the COVID-19 and many other reasons, we start to see more frequently, we start to see that remote access is popular. But if you can prevent it, it's much better. Why? Because we can trust people. We cannot trust the computers. We cannot trust the USB device. If you have a computer, if a service person is carrying his computer from one facility to another facility, he even doesn't know that his computer is already malvertised. He doesn't know. He thinks, well, that's my service computer. That's my manager gave me. Yes, but you are carrying with you the malware from one facility to another facility. So those customers who listen to my presentation, I tell them, well, buy a computer for your facility. The service person is coming, give him your computer, let him do the service. Never allow to bring a laptop to a critical facility, because it is the risk. That person is connecting directly to the heart of the system.
Yeah. So going back, I'm over here and I'm kind of researching And I want to say, what was it? Gabriel, thank you for dropping the note on the IEC. I'm a big, I work in the government's risk and compliance space, big NIST nerd for everybody that knows me. I love NIST, big framework fan on that. So I'm looking through to understand IEC 62443. And what I'm understanding is this is a protocol that is designed for the IACS, so the Industrial Automation and Control Systems, to put you within compliance. Is that correct? Like a high level. I'm trying to dumb it down, but that's kind of what I'm understanding. So this is the compliance framework for industrial control systems to be able to utilize to get them within compliance. But compliance isn't security. So
yes,
okay.
it is a very good guideline.
Okay.
People can learn from it, and if what I say, if people will implement initially 10% of what is written there, start with segregation, continue with the installation of some type of intrusion detection system, preventing remote access, situation will immediately be significantly better. Our goal is not to prevent a leakage of data. We are not worried about the data. The industrial data is in most cases not secret. We are worried about safety. That's where the concern is. If I want to talk about the attack which happened in Saudi Arabia, Aramco in 2017, that an attacker penetrated to the system and disabled the safety instrument system. In reality, nothing happened. Why? Because the attacker made a small mistake. It was discovered. But if that action was not discovered and a critical situation happened, it could be a real catastrophic situation. It could be a safety incidents with many hurted people. So yes, we need to understand the details. Yeah. I want to remind those who are connected that the latest ICS-JWG newsletter published today is actually showing a paper. You provided a link to that, which accurately explain the risk and accurately explains what we need to do in order to protect our facility. Very accurate explanation. Not talking about confidentiality, but talking about safety and reliability. That's where the concern is.
Yeah, no, and I just shared your article again. I think everybody that's watching this, take some time, especially if you're interested about this space, which I am, because it's a critical area that we need to secure because our adversaries know how vulnerable we are. And emerging technology, quantum computing is going to be rolled out in the next 3 to 5 years, not mainstream. And we're going to start seeing more vulnerabilities and more areas that are going to be attacked. And I have a personal feeling that the industrial space is going to see more attacks in the near term. And somebody mentioned it, I think zero trust is critical. Zero trust architecture, like a data-centric approach to start securing these infrastructures, almost bringing them off. I've seen technology that helps industries remove themselves from the network. But just like you talked about with Stuxnet, that only helps so much. But if you have an insider threat that puts a virus on the system, you're still running into issues there. So it's all inclusive. You even talked about this as well, is security awareness training and educating your users on the impacts that they have.
I want to refer to the questions of Mike Marullo, my old friend.
That's what I was just going to say. So
yes,
Mike
about the MQTT and the heavy adding of IIoT devices into the systems. People can say that the 5G will be more secured, but what I want to say is that adding large number of IIoT devices and large number of nodes to the system Doesn't matter if it's MQTT or other wireless, it increased the cyber attack surface. When we will face a situation that the cyber attack surface will so much increase, we won't be able to protect ourselves. How can you protect your home where all the windows are broken, all the doors are broken? Actually, everything is open. How can you protect it? This is what we are creating with the IIoT. I want to call to all the people. Every time somebody is telling you adding a new IIoT device, ask a simple question. Do I need it? How much it is going to increase the risk? Can I deploy a complementing and compensating cyber defense to compensate for the new risks which are created? Very simple. I start to drive a car, I create a new risk. So I need to do insurance. I need to learn how to drive a car because I need some compensating factors to deal with the new risk that I'm creating. Once we start to think in this direction, that every action, every software patch, every IIoT device is increasing the cyber attack surface, then we create a homemade risk. And this is what I want people learning from this podcast.
Yeah, the IoT devices, you're absolutely right, spot on. You need to be aware of the security vulnerabilities that you're going to have when you start putting anything additional on your network. IoT, I was just researching it because I couldn't remember the number, but I know we're going to have 41.6 billion devices in 2025. And not even thinking about, think about it, Daniel, we're going to have smart cities. We're going to have more smart cars. All of these devices have IoT devices. We're moving into the 5G space, which is also has some vulnerabilities. Anytime there's a new technology that comes out, there's that unknown of the capabilities that it has that can be also used by adversaries. But then also, what do those vulnerabilities look like? Because sometimes you don't know what those are until you roll it out and then they get attacked.
Think very simple. Everything what we are doing, smart cities, air condition which can be remotely activated, the toaster which can be remotely activated. Why we are doing it? Because we want convenience. Every time you want to create for yourself a new convenience, you are increasing the risk. If you are willing to give up the convenience, okay, it would be great that if we have why we need doors in our house? Every time open a door, close the door. Why we need it? It would be more convenient to have it without doors. But then we say, wow, if I remove the doors, I will not have privacy. Okay, so that's the way we industrial control people think. I'm not so easy recommending people put thousands of IoT devices. I said, ask everyone, do I need it? Why? I need to buy it. I need to maintain it. I need to secure it. I need to replace it perhaps in 2 years because it will not be able to maintain it. And do I need it? Does it create enough benefits? So I need it. Some very, very important questions that people need to think about.
Yeah, you're spot on. And I agree with Michael. He said 40 billion IIoT devices, probably a conservative estimate. Absolutely. I was looking at that. That's why it took me a minute to read it, because I'm I feel like that's really conservative. I feel like it should be around maybe 75 to 100. But I think we're going to be really surprised in the next. This is what I tell people in the next. Where we are today in cybersecurity, in technology, our threatscape and what we're talking about today is going to drastically change in the next 3 to 5 years because of how emerging technology is, how it's rolling out so quickly.
I want to encourage you to read one more paper. There are many papers published that over 75% of IIoT projects do not deliver the expected benefit. So think about it. You are buying it, you are maintaining it, you are creating security risk, and finally it doesn't deliver the benefit. So maybe it's time that we need to rethink our approach and ask ourselves, if am I sure that I will get the benefit? Because why would you spend $1 on something that does not create benefit, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But people are doing it with IoT devices. Companies are doing it. Why? Because the entire vendors, organizations are pushing us. You must have it. Buy it, buy it, buy it. No, I want to think about it. I don't want to create cybersecurity risk if I don't know how to compensate that risk.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. Okay. I have a question for you. I've got some individuals that want to connect with you on LinkedIn, but it requires to enter your email address. Would you rather them link up with me and DM me directly and I share your email? Or can I
put my email address? That's fine. Everything is okay. I love to connect to people. I love to By the way, all those people who are participating in my training receive all the slides. Perfect. All the slides. Sometimes I have a training session of 16 hours and people receive 400 slides. Why? Because I really want to make sure that people learn. If I keep the knowledge for myself, we will not create a safer world.
Love it. All right. Well, I looked up and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're almost at an hour, Daniel, and which is great. This has gone so fast because you're so engaging, so much knowledge. I am like, I don't even think I could take enough notes. I know the guests have been like, wow. One of them even said, I'd love 5 hours. You have so much knowledge. But we are coming to the end. So I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, because one of the big concerns that you've talked about is really just educating the end users and educating the leadership. So what can we do better as cybersecurity practitioners to educate individuals about these problems?
First of all, educating the employees has the highest return on investment, highest. If I say, if you just make a decision, read the articles which are published by ICS-OT, read a couple of articles which are published on LinkedIn, and make a habit. I want to read 1 paper per week. You will already learn and make a big step ahead. You know, you can invest in people, you can invest in policies and procedures, and you can invest in technologies. Remember, I said technology, the last one. Why? Because technology upgrade is complicated, it's expensive, I don't have the manpower to do it. So what I say, start investing in people, educate your people, send them for training, teach them, give them articles to read, 1 article per week. They will make a major step ahead and the world will be safer.
100%. Love it. Love it. All right. And then before I send you back to the green room and I do a wrap up, I want to give you the stage one more time to do just final thoughts with the community. You've had quite a few people, between 20 to 30 people between LinkedIn and YouTube today. I know everybody has loved this discussion, so I'm going to let you have the stage for final thoughts.
I would like to say, people, that in spite of the fact that we did not see hundreds of attacks in the past 12 years, but when the big one will happen, like the one which was planned for Saudi Arabia in 2017, when the big one will happen, it will be too late to start. I said, conduct assessment on your systems at least once a year. Stick to cybersecurity requirements. Buy only from vendors who take cybersecurity seriously. And finally, as I said earlier, educate your people. The management must know that ISO 27001, 2013, Section 5, Paragraph 1, has a short sentence saying that the CEO and the top management are responsible for cybersecurity. Remember that. Not the employee, not the CISO, not the CIO. The senior management in the organization is responsible for cybersecurity. And I want to say not only responsible, I want to say accountable. So when it will happen, the forensic investigation will come. People will ask hard questions. Remember what happened during the colonial pipeline attack? It was investigated by the Senate in the USA. People said to answer a question, how it happened to us. And I want to say that if those people who made the decision would participate in training class on industrial cybersecurity, understand what is the ransomware and what is the attack against industrial facility. Yes, we could not prevent the ransom attack, but we could continue supply the gas to the people. We need to have business continuity preparedness. We need to have disaster recovery planning, and we need to have incident response. Remember, BCP, DRP, IR, put it in big letters in your office, and you will already be better protected.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, you guys all heard it here, and thankfully it's recorded, so we've got this episode forever. Daniel, it's been amazing. We're going to have to do a round 2. Might even have to bring some of your guests on here. Maybe we'll do a panel style, talking all ICS. I think it would be really, really engaging. Thank you. I'm gonna send you over to the green room now. Do our final outs. See you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Wow, you guys, that was awesome. I cannot believe the time literally flew. I looked up and I was like, wow, we're already at like 50 plus minutes. So really quick, because I know we're at the top of the hour, I just want to remind everybody, first off, if you're new here, thank you for stopping in. Love seeing the engagement in the chat. If you are new here, just so you know, we do go live every Thursday. If you can see over here, from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m., I do one-on-one interviews like this, firesides and panels. And just so you guys know, next week, we're going to have Lola on the show, and we are going to be doing the anniversary series. So she was my first guest that I ever had on Outpost Gray approximately this time last year. So really excited to have her on the show. And then following that, we've got the September highlight series where we're going to be highlighting Sonia Moisette, who is an amazing woman in the technology and innovation space. And then the last thing is just a quick reminder, if you haven't checked out the show, you don't want to miss it. 7 minutes or less, you can get the best CyberFed news on Friday mornings. And I post it by 9 a.m. and I cover the highlights for the week. And big shout out to James Driscoll, who also helps with the content creation on this show. All right. I think I got that out in like 30 seconds, you guys, because you know what's next? What is next is we're going to go over to my buddy and dear friend's show, Simply Cyber. He is getting ready to go live if he hasn't already, and you don't want to miss it. Always a great time. So when you head over there, make sure when you raid, you throw in #OutpostGray and let them know you came from here. And as always, you guys are the best. If you're new, I'd love if you would subscribe, share this out with others, and I will see you next week, same place, same time. Adios all.